Hi guys, it's VC here again, and welcome to another episode of the VC podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be diving into the architectural photography, a field of its own, very unique field. And with me today, I have an architectural photographer, Utibe. Hi, Utibe.
Hi, VC.
Welcome to the channel.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you on the channel. I have seen your work and I have worked with you too. I've seen the passion you put into everything you capture, the details, and how you can stay and get your exact shots. I've worked with you, and a shoot that's supposed to take like 30 minutes. Utibe will make it like 2 hours. In fact, I'll be like, okay, we'll be done now in 4 hours. And before you know, we're here for like 6 hours. She's still trying to say, no, let's get this angle right. So how long have you been into architectural photography?
So I think architecture photography, I've been photographing architecture for about 4 years now. Started in 2021, I believe. Yeah, okay, no, that would be 5 years.
Okay.
The math. So that would be 5 years. It was accidental. I had been photographing portraits, did weddings for a bit, started portraits, and an architect friend of mine reached out and was like, there's a project I'd like you to shoot. Do you think you can do it? I was like, yeah, sure. Let me try, do some research and see. And I was blown away by the fact that there was an entire niche of photography. It was completely different from what was like the usual. And I think that was what I was drawn to because I studied architecture in school. It just felt like a perfect fit, blending photography and architecture together. And so, yeah, that's how that started really for me.
Amazing. It's good that now I know where it started from. I can see the zeal that it comes from.
Yeah.
So I believe that what helps you understand it, because I know on sets, when we go on sets, most times things are not in place. You're the one that will be like, okay, let's put this in place. So is the understanding from architecture that gives you that knowledge?
Yeah, so I think the eye for design plays a huge role in how I see, and just knowing how, architects think, the design process, the thought process that goes into everything. I think that's what I always try to emphasize whenever I'm photographing a space.
Okay. So understanding architecture photography, how can you explain that to us?
Okay, so I think recently there was a podcast I listened to. I really love listening to podcasts. So
welcome to our podcast then.
And a particular architecture photographer, he describes architecture photography as the photography of architecture. The photography of buildings. It's nothing more complicated than that. Just the way you photograph people and landscape, You're photographing buildings. And in this case, light, as always, plays a huge source. And for exterior, that's the sun. And so you have to understand how the sun is moving across a building in order to capture it in its best light. We always want the sun at some point behind us in order to emphasize the details of a building, the whatever design elements that are there. And so the same thing when it comes to interior. So with architecture, you have the exterior, which is the external space. You have the interior, which is the experience inside the space, and that comes with some design as well. So you have interior designers as part of your clientele in that area. So it's just the photography of the entire built environment. Sometimes that's product as well, depending. Seats, chairs, furniture, how that all plays into the space and the experience that people have.
Okay, that's good to know. So what's the main objective when photographing a building?
So I'd say the main objective is just, again, like photography in general, right? It's this telling of a story.
Okay.
So your goal as an architectural photographer is to tell the story of a building based on what the architect had in mind. What was their vision? Why did they choose the materials they chose? What was the concept that they were going with? When you understand that, you're able to bring that to life in your images. And it's really working as a collaborator with the architects and interior designers and the builders in the field to be able to communicate what the building was designed to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not just photographing the building, but it's also bringing the architectural vision to life.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Amazing. Most times, I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty of it. In my early career, I shot a shotlet, a hotel, something like that. And then when they called me to do it, I was like, yeah, I can do it. I just went, got it, did my thing, and I was done.
Yeah.
And eventually the man was like, the sunlight, the place that light enters from, you didn't get it. And I could tell that he was not satisfied, but the shots were amazing. I mean, I used a Sony FX30 for that, and I used a very good lens. The shots were amazing, but he was not satisfied. Right. So I just guess his vision was not properly seen. Yes,
exactly.
What should a beginner look for before taking their first photograph of a building?
I think I'll say they should start with understanding what they're trying to convey. What's the message? What are you trying to say with this building? What aspect do you want to focus on? So when you say beginner, is someone that's shooting for the first time in architecture building? Yes, okay, so yeah, that would be number one. Number two, this is the first rule of architecture. Always keep your lines vertical. They should never do this. They should never do that. If the lines are straight, if the wall is straight, let it look straight in image. So make sure that your lines are always vertical. And one of the best ways to help with that is having a tripod on hand. So aim to shoot with a tripod. Architecture photography is a slow process.
Yeah.
It requires you to take your time, right? In composing your shots, trying to make sure that you got your angles right, your proportions. If you're looking at, I guess, the rule of thirds and those concepts when you're working. So yeah, really, I think back to trying to tell that story, paying attention to the details that the building has that you're trying to convey, ensuring that you have a tripod that will help you first of all, stay sturdy. So as an architectural photographer, you usually shoot at really low ISOs. Okay. And also your shutter speed is really low. It's, you go below 100, 1/100. Okay. So you keep going. So as low as possible, usually so that you can capture it with little motion and allow a lot of light in when you're using f-stops as high as 8. So between 8 and 16, that's the ideal range. So if you're shooting exterior, which is the outside of a building, you would be looking at f8 and going lower. If you're shooting interior, you could go from 11 to 16. But these are basic rules. When you understand the rules with everything, you can learn to start breaking them to create your own style and way of shooting. So yeah.
Okay, great. Now I've noticed your image looks very professional. Okay. And I've seen some people's image that I'll be like, okay, this is a building. Yeah, you photograph a building. Yeah, good job. But I know when I see your image and I see the building, I'll be like, wow, this building looks so good. How do you get your image to look that good and that professional? What makes an image look professional?
That sounds like a really hard question to answer because personally, I still have a lot of imposter syndrome, so I never feel like it's professional enough. I guess it's, understanding what the basics of architectural photography requires, right? You ensure that everything stays vertical, which is very important. Architects take their time to make sure their designs are straight and intentional. So make sure you photograph it as intentional as it's supposed to be. The other thing is understanding how the light moves on that building. You always want to capture it at the best lighting. And sometimes that's a fraction of a second, maybe a couple of minutes that you have to be able to capture that. So you have to be patient. And that would come through, when you see the way the light hits the building, the shadows, where it's showing, where it's creating depth. Those are the things you're looking for. Also, bracketing is another concept in which you shoot multiple brackets. That's you have a bright, medium, or a bright, normal, and then underexposed. And you may need a couple of those so that you can blend it You can blend it in Photoshop or whatever software you use. That's ideal. Don't try to avoid the HDR look, which is maybe what you're saying gives that unprofessional look to it. It should look as natural as possible. Okay. And yeah, I think those would be the things I would say. And then just time. The more you do it, the better you get at it, right? The more your eyes get trained to see what would look professional or what would look great about a building. Yeah, I think those were, yeah.
What are the biggest mistakes a beginner photographer photographing a building will make?
Not doing your research. Start with research. So you're photographing a building. Maybe it has some historical context. They were intentional about the choice of materials they use. They were intentional about how it's positioned in relation to the sun. Pay attention to those things. If you do your research, you'll know, okay, the building gets the best light maybe early morning or midday, right? You also have situations where at night or dusk, when the sun is just about to go down, it's in between that golden hour and sun setting completely. That's always a beautiful time to photograph a building, especially if it's facing the direction where the sun sets, right? At that point in time, the light comes on inside and out, and it blends. There's a beautiful blend that comes between what's outside, the light from the sun, and the internal light that can give you great access to what, I guess, the flow of the building was meant to do. So yes, start with research. That's ideally where to start. If you can understand the building, understand why it was designed, if you have access to the architect or the designer, that's a good place to start with your research. Ask them questions, and then that helps inform how you should photograph the building. It's not just, oh, this looks like a beautiful building, I want to capture it. There's more to it. Yeah.
That's solid. That's solid. Very solid. And now to appreciate the building, the architect's vision, what are the lenses you would say is best?
Okay, so I'm not a gearhead. I try to do the best with what I have.
Okay.
But from watching some of the professionals, the people that I admire, some of my, I guess, quote unquote mentors, the tilt shift is always one that they suggest, getting a tilt shift. So that gives you the ability to take a picture without having to tilt your camera upwards. So it's just the lens that shifts, right? And so it can position perfectly and you still get all your verticals straight. So there's I know Canon has a 17 mm tilt shift, and then there's the 24 mm. So for exteriors, those are your ideal ranges. If you can get a 16 mm regular, I guess you have the 16 to 35 and then the 24 to 70 or 24 to 105 in Canon. Those are the ones I'm aware of. You can start with those. So wider angles are better, like wider lenses are better for exterior. But when you're shooting interior, you can go from 24, sometimes could be too wide, right? So it would give you a bit of distortion, which is what you're trying to avoid. You want to make sure everything is straight, but you don't want that barreling effect that comes with the 24.
Yeah, that one that makes the building look like it's falling.
Yeah, or it's curving at the sides. Yeah, so you're trying to avoid that, because what happens is that anything on the edges looks distorted. It looks stretched out a bit. So you try to avoid that. So you would be shooting 24, 35, 50. Right. So, because 50 is closest to what we see as people, right?
Yeah.
How our eyes see. So those would be the lenses I would recommend.
Okay.
But if you can only get your hand on one, start with the 24 to 105.
Okay. that one does the close and the wide.
Exactly.
And what camera would you suggest a beginner to go for?
Anything that's full framed. That's what I would say. Try to avoid crop censored unless you have access to lenses that can lend to that, because once you're crop censored, your lens also gets cropped, right? So I started out with the Canon 5D Mark II, shot with it for a really long time. Yeah, and just recently upgraded. So pretty much, I think anything you can get your hands on, even your phone, is a good way to start. Why? Because that's going to train your eye. You get to start seeing. If you go walk around, especially I think in Abuja and Nigeria, just also for safety, if you want to take a picture of a building, you need to try and be a bit inconspicuous.
You need to stay on one side and snap it, or if you know them, you ask for permission.
Exactly. Because so if you can't do that, your phone can do a good job if you're learning to train your eye. Take your phone out, compose arrange your composition properly,
Yeah.
and then take your shot. Keep playing with that. Keep doing that. And over time, it helps you. You'll be looking at buildings already with the mindset of, oh, this is actually a really good angle. And it will cut down your time over.
Like I always said, for you to get to photograph something uniquely, you have to see it first.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't see it, you can't take it.
Exactly.
Okay, I feel you. And what aperture do you use and why?
So f8.
Why?
F8 to F16. Why? Because you want to capture everything as much as possible in focus. So your depth of field is less. I believe that's the way it should work, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that everything, both in the foreground, midground, and background, are all in focus. So the closer or the smaller, narrower your aperture is, the better. So you start at f8, and then you can maneuver between f8 to f16 depending on where you are. Again, you understand the rule, and then you can figure out how to break it depending on whatever the situation is.
Okay, so most beginner photographers tend to get confused in shooting JPEG and RAW. So how important and many of them know that it's important to shoot in RAW.
Yeah.
Some of them want to just shoot in JPEG, some want to shoot in RAW, but they know RAW is important. But how important is RAW?
Oh, you have to stick to RAW, because RAW gives you more flexibility, right, to play around. Once something is shot in JPEG, you're going to have a hard time playing with the colors, and that's a huge part of architecture photography as a whole, right? The designer had an intention in mind when they were designing.
Yes.
So they're picky about the colors. They're picky about the tones. So you don't want to have a building that had a warm feel to it start looking cool. That was not the intention of the design.
Yeah.
So with JPEG, it's limited. But when you're using RAW, you can play around with your color tones, you're able to manage your white balance better, things like that. So yeah, RAW all the way.
Okay.
And that's what makes you a professional, I guess, in the sense, is shooting with RAW versus JPEG.
Imagine you mistakenly forgot your settings one day and you shot JPEG.
Good luck with that.
You have to apologize to the clients and maybe go back and reshoot.
Yes.
Are you serious? Is that serious?
It's that serious. Okay, so yes, it's that serious.
You have to think about it again. Sure that
yeah,
is that serious?
Because Photoshop, it depends on how good you are in Photoshop. So I prefer to get everything perfect in camera and do little work in Photoshop. Yes. So if you're a magician with Photoshop, please go ahead and try.
And the truth is, the more you do in edits, the more artificial your picture may look.
Yeah, sometimes
So you have to relatively get something very good, and then the editing it just adds more flair.
Yeah, and your style, I guess, a little bit in it. Yeah.
I feel you. Now you also spoke about the importance of tripod and having it sturdy because of your shooting at a lower shutter speed.
Yeah.
Now, is there any points that you need to take a shot without a tripod?
Details. If you want to do some handheld details, yes, you can.
Details like?
Details, let's say, so there's something called vignettes, right? That's like a tighter shot that gives certain details, right? It could, let's say, you have maybe a specific detail that's like somewhat like, let's say the interior designer had a shelf design and a couple of things specific, like little pots or something like that highlights, gives a sense to the space and what they need, like just little details. I think that's what you could use handheld for. But I also found out that some of the masters out there actually shoot handheld even for their exterior shots because it allows for easy movement. Imagine having to lug a tripod around every single time you're trying to change angles, right? But without a tripod, there's also the flexibility of moving around quickly. So if I need to get a particular shot, I'll do this more, I think I would risk it more for exterior because I have the sunlight, and at an ISO of 100, my shutter speed wouldn't be so low, right? So I can play around with that. But if that's not the case, stick to a tripod.
Now, one important part of photography, videography, or anything visual storytelling is lighting. How does lighting change the way a building look?
So lighting creates moods,
Yeah.
right? Exterior lighting will do that. So majorly for exterior light, again, you have the sun, right? And
Yes.
so that will definitely change the mood of a building. You could tell when the sun is behind the building, the front, so if you're taking a picture of the front of a building, right, which is the facade, if the sun is behind it, it's going to be hard for you to see the detail. Most of the front will be in shadow.
Okay.
So a good thing you would have to do is wait for the sun to come around to the front. And there are specific angles in which the sun will come that will create depth in the image, right? It will create, you'll definitely see colors better when the sun is directed at it. Just the way we control strobes.
Yeah.
That's the same way you're going to have to understand how the sun works and the angles it's in order to get good images for exterior. Also, you have cloudy days, right? Or rainy days. And so that also creates a mood to your building, right? That's either you may want to, it depends also what the architect's vision is. If they wanted to capture it in all seasons, that would be a beautiful thing to also display how the building changes and interacts with the environment. Interior wise, though, you have a little bit more leeway to play around with lighting. You have the sun definitely that comes through the windows, but you also have strobe lighting that you can play around with in order to emphasize what it would look like. For example, if you don't have a bright sunny day outside, you could use your strobe to manipulate the look of the sun coming through. There are many techniques that people use, or you could play around with a scrim, so like a white fabric, to be able to modify the light, or a black fabric to cut down light in certain places. So if you're going for a darker mood, right, you would try and cut off some lighting. If you're going for a brighter mood, right, you let as much light in as possible. Then you also need to factor in artificial light, which is the original light, the lighting plan that the designer had in mind. That also comes into play. And that also affects your color tone. So we have the warm light that comes on, you have a combination of lights nowadays, and so that plays a lot into how it shows up.
So with all you've said, natural light is important. But how do you ever accept a job when you have to shoot the exterior, the entire building, but the sun is harsh? The sun is at its highest in the afternoon, not the golden hour.
Yeah, you can.
And the sun is facing the building directly?
That's a good time, I think, to photograph. That gives you direct sunlight, right? Let's say direct sunlight is usually 12. That's overhead.
Yeah.
So the sun is over the building, right on top of the building.
Yeah.
That might be a good time for drone shots.
Okay.
Right? Because there will be a shadow cast on the floor. There's this thing in architecture, I guess architectural drawings that I really used to appreciate in school, how you drew, and then there are, I think, 45-degree angles when you're drawing a flat site plan. And so that's the concept that you could create with drone photography at that angle. So why not? Why not? I think try different lighting. Watch how the sun moves through a building, right? Don't restrict yourself to saying you won't shoot at high noon. If that's the only time you have, you're going to make it work. Yeah.
Okay, I agree with you. When you said that's a perfect time for a drone shot, my head, I say imagining it.
Okay.
I say imagine, the sun moves.
Yeah.
So if you're to take a drone shot, I'm talking about videos now because I'm a cinematographer, and the building is there and your drone is seeing it, and then you can see the shadow casted on it. As the sun moves, the shadow moves.
Shifts as well.
So if you stay and get it right, what's the name of that thing? Speed ramping. Is it speed ramping? I'm trying to. It's not speed ramping.
I know what you're trying to say. The word is not coming.
It's not coming.
Time lapse.
Time lapse. If you do a time lapse and the clouds, the sun is moving, you can see the shadows moving.
Exactly.
And how
and that's beautiful.
I've already imagined it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And you can do that interior as well. If you know there's a particular part of a building, right, where the sun moves beautifully, right? The way maybe they have some kind of louvering system as part of their design.
Yeah.
Now you now watch the angle as the sun creeps in and disappears and casts shadow in the space as well. And it creates a whole new mood. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. But then what do you do when one side of the building is bright
Okay.
and the other side of the building is dark and you're trying to photograph the entire building?
So is this exterior or
Exterior.
interior? Exterior.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to photograph the side that's bright first, right? If the sun moves in the direction where it's going to either go around the building, right, to the point where the dark side now gets light, then at that time you move to that side. So really, I would advise that you stay on a building as long as you possibly can. So that's as early in the morning as you can get there, 8, 6, depends on when the sun rises, right? To as late as when the sun goes down. That gives you enough time to see how the sun moves. Different parts of the buildings would be, because we're shooting 3D. A 3D object, right? And as the sun moves, different areas will reflect light differently. And so that gives you enough time to photograph all sides of the building where you can. Some places you won't be able to get to all angles, right? Depending on how close the building is to the next and etc. Yeah.
You know, now I understand the way you work better.
Why?
Yes, because I won't lie, you've taught me so much in architectural cinematography by your angles and your zeal to get the right angle. But I never understood, wait, why is she making me come in the morning and why are we leaving late?
Yeah.
But now I understand it. And the first time I walked into you, I thought you were punishing me. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But at the longer we stay, the more I see the need for us staying, because the sunlight was not coming at this point, but then when we stay and we get other things, before you know, the sunlight's coming at that point, and then you could see how beautifully is my grammar correct? The beautifully?
Yeah, how beautiful, I guess.
Okay. You can see how beautiful, Chim, but you can see how the sun enters. and it's so beautiful. Yeah.
I had there was a particular shoot that we had, and there was a shot that I had in mind, and I knew it would be beautiful, but for some reason the clouds that day were just playing. But what I just did is, okay, you know what? Let's shoot everywhere else and just wait. And I had to wait. I think we waited almost 30 minutes, and you could just slowly see the sun peeking in. I set up my camera. We waited another 5 minutes. It was coming in some more, and just kept waiting, I think for 30 minutes. And then the sun beautifully came in, and it casted a shadow over the furniture, the wall, everything. And it just made the shot. There's a way light comes through, right? Where you have light and shadow. There's a combination of bright spots and dark spots, and it just beautifully creates some emotion. I could have shot it flat, and it would have just been, oh, okay, it's a furniture, a beautiful red chair, and some artwork on the wall, but with the light coming in, it changed the whole thing. So waiting it's a time game.
Amazing. You said something about clouds.
Okay.
Do cloudy days affect architectural photography?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah, because you have less sun coming into your building, but it's also beautiful because it gives you more of an even tone. So again, depends on what you're going for, right? At the end of the day, what's the mood that the architect wants you to create? If they want it to be a bit harsh and showing shadows, right? And a lot of contrast, a bright sunny day is good. But if they want that soft, homey feel, right? That where it's really warm and it gives a bit of a cozy feel, then you do that when it's a cloudy day would do you a lot of good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I have this scenario.
Okay.
I have a camera. I have a 24mm.
Okay.
I have my tripod, and I have my first architectural shoot tomorrow.
Okay.
How do you think I should go about it?
Okay. One of the things I would advise is get tethered, right? So that's either you have a cable or there's some, I believe, Wi-Fi setups or Bluetooth setups that connect your camera to your laptop or your iPad.
Okay.
Right. What does for you is that it gives you a larger screen to look at versus the camera viewfinder, right? It allows you to have more control over what you're seeing. And so once you've gotten your composition set on that shoot, right, you can now move things around within the space. So if you're shooting interior, right, at that point you can now say, okay, this pillow doesn't look right. This vase should come in more. Let's move the chairs a bit more. Something is not straight. Those are all the details and attention, like changes you can make on set. Because the worst thing you could do is after taking a shot, you go back to your camera, you go back to your laptop, you've uploaded everything, and now you're trying to edit and you're like, oh man, I wish I just moved this a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
Doing that in Photoshop is a lot more work. But if you had taken time to just look through it, through your laptop or your iPad, you could see it immediately and be like, okay, hey, can we move this to the right and all that? So get tethered. That would help you a lot in your process. And then have your compositions in mind. So walk around the space you're photographing. So is that the interior or the exterior? And then just visually decide, okay, these are the angles I'm going to capture. This is why I would do this, why I won't do that instead, things like that.
Okay, amazing. So another scenario.
Okay.
I'm photographing a huge room with big windows. The inside looks okay, but the lights from outside makes it overexposed. The windows are overexposed. The light is harsh. What should I do?
Where are you focusing? Are you facing the windows, or are you facing a wall that the window is adjacent to?
So let's say there's a couch, and then the window is behind the couch. I'm focusing on the couch. Okay. But then inside, of course, looks okay. But then the window is big and the lights coming in is harsh. Okay. How do I handle that situation?
So this is where bracketing helps, right? So the concept of using multiple exposures.
Okay.
So you're going to have to now expose for everything individually. So you maybe start with the couch, right? Adjust your settings to make sure that the couch is properly exposed. Take that shot. Then you also take a shot where you have the window properly exposed. So you can make adjustments on your shutter speed to make sure that the amount of light coming in is just perfect. Like it looks like you would normally see it with your eyes. It's not too bright, but you can see the outside very well and clearly. So you're gonna need to take a multiple series of exposures of the same composition. So you're not moving your camera, you're not shifting angles, you stay in the same spot, but take different brackets of the angles. Then you can maybe just throw in a strobe, right? So that it counteracts the light coming in, right? So that you can get some colors on the chair, depending on what the color of the seat was, right? So I think that's how I would do that. Yeah. Or find ways if you have an umbrella, or you can actually, if you can, close the windows, like have curtains over that window. You can play around with that. So I would take it in the way I would edit it, right? So I know that, okay, first of all, I need the couch to look a certain way, right? It needs to show the color, it needs to show the texture. What settings, what shutter speed would allow me to see that, right? I'll do that first. If I'm not getting it with that, right, I can take a overall shot first, make sure that I have a good composition, I have a good, that my image is properly exposed, right? Okay. And then I have darker exposures and brighter exposures. So that allows me to control how much light is actually coming in to the image. And then I can now know that, okay, when I get back to my laptop, I'm going to have to layer this on top of each other in order to achieve the actual look that I was going for, which is the look that it looks normal, how my eyes would normally see it. But our eyes can see better than the camera can see. You know, you'd see highlights where there aren't as many highlights in the image. So yeah, that would help you play around with that. So a lot of exposures, right? Multiple brackets so that you can be able to get a good range that you can later play around with in post to get the image you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Let's say I have 500,000 naira and I'm a beginner architectural photographer. What should I buy and what shouldn't I buy?
Oh, that's a hard question. Okay, what should you buy?
I know I would want to buy everything without 500K.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, when you start reading about stuff, oh, you need this and you need that and you need this. What can 500K get you? It depends. Okay, so I would get a tethering cable. Okay. Right? So that allows you to connect your camera to your laptop. That's good. I think that's around 50K, maybe 50, 80K. I would say if you have 500K and you don't have a camera, just rent. don't buy a camera yet.
Okay.
Right? So you could do other things. You can get other absolutely necessary equipment, which would be your tethering cable. If you can get a couple of batteries, you're going to need them because you shoot in live mode most of the time. And so that runs down your battery. So as many batteries as you can have.
A laptop.
Yeah. Laptop is important. Very important.
Okay.
Tethering cable is very important. What else? A good tripod. Did you say you had a tripod already?
Oh, I don't have anything, no. Just 500K.
Okay, so you need a tripod, a sturdy one. So maybe go with a carbon fiber tripod, something that is within your budget.
The one you has finished.
Yeah, pretty much. But would I spend all that money on equipment? Probably not. Maybe try and get a course. Okay. Right, that can help you understand how to edit architectural photography because of the layering that is required with it, right? It's a bit different from how you would photograph traditional because you use a lot more images, like a lot more layers to be able to achieve a look that you're going for. So yes, spend some money on a course, learning the basics of architectural photography and yeah, do that. Yeah.
Okay. That explains it. That just simply tells me that 500K, I need to work my ass off to make it more too. Amazing.
Probably, definitely. Yeah.
Now, let's say I've taken 100 photographs of a building.
Okay.
How do I decide the 10 to deliver? Pick 10 out of the 100.
Okay. So, if you had a conversation with the architect at the beginning, you'll know what angles they are looking at.
Okay.
Right? So you have that in mind when you're shooting. You may not have up to 100 images though, but you have that in mind when you're shooting. I generally let my clients pick images by themselves. I don't select for them. Yeah, so the 100 would be their choice to make. They might ask for my advice and I would ask what their intention is. Again, if I would remember what their intention is. And I was like, okay, ideally, these would be my top 10 picks. But let's see yours. And then we can go back and forth and decide which ones would be better to communicate the image and the goal and vision that they were going for.
So I'm photographing a building, an interior. The lighting is terrible. I don't have expensive lights. How do I go about it? That bracketing you talked about earlier, will it still work?
Yes, it would. Okay, so when you say terrible lighting, what are you talking about? Like ambient light or not enough natural light?
Not enough natural lights and ambient lights.
Okay. Yes, bracketing would work. Yeah, so you can shoot as low as 30 seconds, right? For your shutter speed at 30 seconds. That allows as much light to come in as possible. So I would start, first of all, personally, I always start with all the lights off so that I can get a good exposure of the space without any lighting, without any ambient lighting whatsoever. That way I can add the ambient lighting on top afterwards. So if you say that the ambient lighting is terrible, you can play around with it. You have the spotlights, you have the chandelier, for example, or you have the rope lights. Don't turn them all at once, on at once. Turn each one on and off. So take a shot, turn one on, take a shot, then turn it off, turn on the next light. So if you have spotlighting, you can start with the spotlighting, then turn that off, turn on the rope light. That gives you, so you can get a good exposure of the rope light itself. If you have a chandelier and the client wants to emphasize the chandelier, turn off every other light, just turn on the chandelier alone. So now when you're editing in post, right, you have your natural light exposure, which is what you try to shoot at 30 seconds and get as much light in as possible, right? And then now you can layer on the other lights. So the ambient light, you can turn on this, you can have layer in the spotlight, the chandelier, and the rope, all at a very good exposure that nothing looks like their highlights have been blown. So that's the way to go about it. Yeah. So you think about how you're going to edit in post. That would help you in how you take each shot or expose each shot.
Over your years and experience in architectural photography, what are the mistakes a beginner should avoid?
Number one, leaving all the lights on. Don't make that mistake.
Okay.
Because you're dealing with a lot of color tones. right? You'll have a patch where it's warm. You'll have an area where it's green because of the way the fluorescent light, or the tungsten light casts on the floor and on the furniture or the space as a whole. So turn off all your lights. If you're in a space that you can turn off the lights, please do. Commercial spaces might be a bit harder, but you can explain this to your client that, okay, my process requires me to turn off the lights, but I will first get a natural exposure that helps me have a clean look altogether. So everything that's white stays white.
Okay.
Right? And that gives the best color tone of everything else. And then now you turn on the lights individually to add that, because the designer or the architect wants to have the lights that they featured, have the lights that they chose featured. So that's one of the mistakes I won't make. Another mistake, not getting enough brackets.
Okay.
Right? So when you're bracketing, the camera automatically can do, I think you can do 3, you can also do up to 5 stops. It's up to you, whichever one you use. But if you think you've gotten your darkest, just go a little bit darker. If you think you've gotten your brightest, just go a little bit brighter. That way, you never have to sit behind the camera and say, or behind your laptop, on your laptop when you're editing and say, oh man, I wish I had gotten this a little bit darker, or I wish I'd gotten this a little bit brighter. It's much more, it might be a bit more challenging then. Another mistake is not moving objects when you're on set. Okay. Anything you need to move, ask for permission, first of all. Ask the client, hey, is it okay if I move this? I think it will look better without. Or cables, wires. If they're wires and you can hide them, please hide them. Cleaning out wires in Photoshop is not fun. It's not fun. So anything you can take out, right, while you're on set, take it out.
And it's a wrap for today. Please subscribe, like, drop a comment so we know what we got wrong or what we got right, and know what we should talk about next. And turn on your post notifications so you'll be notified when next we drop another video. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.